Room install already.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. I am Garima from Reach IV. I'm a senior counselor with Reach IV, and today we have with us Maria, who's the senior associate director at Yale School of Management. So before I go ahead with the questions and understanding more about the program, Maria, why don't you give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sounds great. Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be here. I just love connecting with candidates from India. I've been to India many times in different cities, but obviously mainly the big ones. And I really, really miss traveling and coming to the country and really connecting with you in person. As we used to run, large events, receptions in New Delhi, Mumbai, etc. Hopefully we can return soon and really connect in person again. But obviously that I think we need to be a little bit more patient about that. My name is Maria. My role on the admissions team is just like all of my colleagues. I read lots and lots of applications, interview candidates for admission. I sit on the admissions committee to help make admissions decisions on our candidates. But I also have a few other responsibilities in the admissions office. I oversee the Silver Scholars Program that is specifically designed for college seniors who wish to enter our MBA class immediately after they complete their undergraduate studies. And I oversee our joint degree programs. Perhaps some of you know that along with the MBA, you can pursue another graduate program at Yale University, such as another master's, MD, JD, PhD, etc. We have a total of 10 joint degree programs.
Awesome. So, Maria, why don't you start with telling us a bit more about the Yale University, and maybe then we can talk a bit more about the School of Management. Over to you.
Yeah, that's great. Sure. I'm happy to say a few words about the Yale School of Management. I think everybody knows Yale University. It's situated in New Haven, Connecticut, right between Boston and New York. But I think perhaps not everyone has a good sense of what the Yale School of Management is and what it's really about. So a few things. If you compare us to our peers, any top tier MBA program, we're one of the newest schools. We were only established in the 70s, while some of our peers have been around for over 100 years. And also, we're one of the smaller ones, meaning that while many of our peers accept close to 1,000 students, our incoming class every fall is about 345 to 350 students, okay? So obviously that makes for a smaller community that's very tight-knit, and it's the kind of place where everybody kind of knows each other. The mission of the school, really the founding mission of the school, and the reason why the school exists is to educate leaders for business and society, which means that from the very beginning, there has been a very strong emphasis on educating leaders, both for the private and the public sector, okay? And also the kind of leaders that yes, want to be successful, want to have great careers, but also interested in making social impact, right? Through whatever work they do in any industry, any company, any geography around the world. The mission is very much what sort of sets the strategic goals for the school today, what defines our path moving forward. Really everything that we do is informed by that mission. So sometimes people think that means that we favor or largely accept students from the public sector or nonprofit backgrounds. That's not true. Many of them do come from those experiences and backgrounds. But it's really more about attracting the kind of people that, as I said, want to contribute to the greater good and want to do good in the world. And you certainly can do that through any industry, any professional endeavor after graduation. God knows we have enough problems in the world to tackle, right? Social, political, economic, environmental, health, education, et cetera, et cetera. So you can make an impact. You can have a positive impact on society, no matter what kind of career path you choose, and we're there to support you in that endeavor.
Great. And I can also vouch for that because one of my really good friends was part of he did his MBA from the Yale School of Management and came from a management background, but then pivoted his sort of career more towards social impact. So the entire experience can actually really have a fundamental sort of impact on your career. So I definitely relate to that and can vouch for that from the experiences of my friends. But then it would also be now nice to hear from you the different programs at the School of Management. So there is an MBA program, then there is a Silver Scholars program, and you also mentioned the joint degree. So it will be nice to hear from you. We can start with the MBA program.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned the class size of 345 to 350 students arriving every year. It's a 2-year full-time in-residence program with students doing a summer internship between the first and the second year. And I suppose one important thing to kind of point out here is that it's an MBA degree. It's a degree in general management. And unlike other schools, we don't really offer a specialization, a concentration, a certificate. There's nothing special that could potentially be printed on your diploma, on your, on your MBA degree as you're graduating. Everybody gets the same degree. However, I also want to point out that that doesn't mean that you can't have a concentration or specialization or a specific focus through your education. One thing that we're very proud of is that we are perhaps the business school most connected with its home institution, meaning that when you get accepted to SOM, yes, you are a business school student, you're an SOM student, but first and foremost, you're a Yale student, okay? What that means is that you have absolutely unlimited and unrestricted access to everything that Yale University has to offer. And perhaps the most prominent example of that is the courses, right? This is what students often wonder about. Yeah, okay, I'm part of Yale and I have access to the institution, but what does that really mean in terms of my academic choices? And what that means is you can take as many courses from anywhere at Yale University, no limitations, no restrictions. The second year of the MBA program is all electives. So you can really design the kind of curriculum that you know will serve you academically and professionally. So this is why we don't have a healthcare track, a sustainability track, asset management track, because if we do, we have to have a list of courses that we require you to take. That's great. However, we have so many students interested in healthcare, but they're not interested in the same kind of aspect or career in healthcare. So by giving them the choice to go to the Yale School of Medicine, the Yale School of Public Health, and anywhere else on campus, they can curate the kind of curriculum that works for them. The same with the students interested in environmental issues. I can't even begin listing how many things fall under the umbrella of environmentalism, right? With energy efficiency, green energy, waste management, sustainability, supply chain. I mean, there's so many things, and our students are interested in all of those things. So again, instead of forcing them into a sustainability track, they can go and take all the courses that they find relevant to their interests and their career goals. The Yale School of the Environment is right across the street from us. The Jackson Institute is also right across the street from us. So they can really be the architect of their own curriculum, because we believe that they know best what would really work for them.
Amazing. Yeah, it's fascinating to see the kind of flexibility and also the connectedness with the university, which is built into the MBA program. I'm also interested in knowing from you more about the Yale Silver Scholar program, which is part of this deferred MBA program offered by the university. Can you tell us a bit more about that as well?
Sure. I'm always happy to talk about the Silver Scholars Program. It's kind of my baby. I oversee that program, but also because it's very unique. I'm sure most of your audience here knows that a number of business schools accept applications from college seniors. But the difference is that for them, it's always on the condition that yes, we accept you, we enroll you in our MBA program, but you have to work for a while before you actually come to campus and begin the MBA program. And the Silver Scholars Program is different because you apply as a college senior, you get admitted, you graduate in May or June, whenever your school ends, and you join us in the fall. You come into the MBA program in the fall, you join the MBA cohort, you complete the first year of the MBA program, and then instead of a summer internship, you work full-time for a year. Some students choose to work maybe a couple of years. Then they come back and they finish the second year of the MBA program. So by the time they graduate, they have an MBA, they have meaningful work experience, they're on par with every MBA student around the world to compete for the same jobs, titles, salaries, etc. So essentially, the idea behind the program, the reason why it was created is to help you accelerate your career. Instead of following the traditional track where you work for a few years, you kind of try and figure out what to do, pivot into a new direction, or advance in your current industry or company. If you are a college senior and you have a very good idea of what you want to do professionally, then I would say the Silver Scholars Program is the right program for you. Because it just helps you get there much, much, much faster.
And that's very exciting because every year we get a lot of interest from students in applying for an MBA right out of the school, right out of the UG degree. And so I'm curious to know, because I find this concept of working for at least 1 year very fascinating. So I'm curious to know, how do you support international students in the visa process? Like, do they typically end up working in the US or other geographies? How does that work out?
Yeah, great question, because I would say more than 50% of our Silver Scholars are internationals. And so for those of them that really want to gain work experience in the United States, they know that after graduation, they have the practical training option to stay in the United States and work. And now with STEM, that's, it's extended beyond the 1 year. But they wonder about that, gap year in the MBA program. How can I work in the United States? And because it's a requirement for the program, they actually have something called CPT, Curricular Practical Training. And so they can remain in the United States, work for that entire year. I can tell you that some international students have stayed and worked for a number of years, 2-3 years. Sometimes it's industry specific, company specific, office specific. So I can't say that it's possible for any international student in any industry, in any company in the United States. I cannot make that claim. But I have seen it happen. It does work out for some students. So it's kind of just a matter of strategizing and, working with different companies and offices and really having, as I said, clear goals and knowing what you want to do. But yes, the other thing is that a number of our Silver Scholars actually decide to maybe split that year and work for 6 months in the United States and 6 months somewhere else around the world, in Europe, in Asia, especially for those interested in a more global career. They look at that as an option. The one thing I want to emphasize that it's just very, very flexible. We're always there to support you, encourage you, guide you, advise you. We have the people, the resources. That's obviously one of the great advantages of being a really well-known and resourced school. And just to give you an example, the Silver Scholars are usually about 5 to 10% of the MBA class. And besides having access to all the resources and the entire career development office, on top of that, they have their own full-time professional in the career development office whose expertise is early career students. So either students that have very little work experience after graduation or none whatsoever. And she helps guide them. She oversees their professional development, helps them with internship and job search, organizes networking events, invites alumni, etc., etc. She's there every step of the way for any question and any kind of help they may need, whether it's something simple as tweaking your resume and cover letter to negotiating a contract or looking for opportunities, globally.
Amazing. Sounds great. And I'm sure that all the students who are interested in the Yale Silver Scholars Program would be thrilled at hearing the kind of prospects it opens up to somebody so young in their career journey. So, and now I actually want to ask you one of the most asked questions from our students is how do they build a profile which is Yale School of Management worthy? Like, what are the tips, if there are any tips that you can give to students who are thinking of applying next year for one of the programs at the School of Management?
Yeah, would you like me to speak more generally or more specifically to Indian candidates or both, maybe a little bit of both?
Yeah, I think you can talk about both, but then
Okay.
again talk maybe a bit more in detail for an Indian applicant.
Sure, absolutely happy to. So I'll start with this. Sometimes I think candidates have certain preconceived notions about what an admissions committee is looking for. They think, oh, they're applying to business schools, so everything has to look a certain way. They have to project a certain image or fit in a square box. And so the first thing I want to say is that we have never in our entire history as a school have been the type of institution, the type of management business school that looks for a particular kind of profile of student. And I think it's important to state because if we go back far enough in history, I mean, it is obviously very clear why business schools were established, right? They were established for candidates from certain industries to go into certain industries. Okay, and we're talking obviously the traditional industries of finance, consulting, marketing, et cetera, because again, this is an advantage, being one of the younger schools, established in the 70s, established as a school of private and public management. We never looked for that traditional type of profile. And so everyone that was kind of considered a non-traditional business school candidate has always felt very much at home with us because we truly try to recruit a diverse class of students academically, professionally, experientially, geographically, and that absolutely goes for students from India. Again, I think sometimes people think that there's only a type of student that comes from the Indian applications, from the India pool of applicants, and that's absolutely not true. Yes, India has incredibly strong engineers and software developers. Of course, that goes without saying. They're super talented in finance as well. But we really see all the industries. We see people coming from Teach for India, for example, coming from careers in government, coming from careers in NGOs, foundations, right, such as the Clinton Foundation, Gates Foundation, etc. We see all of those applications as well, and they're on equal footing, meaning that we don't have a preference for one over the other. We think that each person enriches the community when accepted by bringing those different experiences and backgrounds and points of view, right? So even within the India pool, we never look at or have preferences for one major or resume or career profile over another. And I think the reason why it's important to state that is so that everybody understands how important it is to present your authentic self, right? Again, not to try to project an image and present to the committee what you think they're looking for, but really show us who you really are as a person, as a professional, as somebody who aspires to have a certain kind of career and accomplish certain things in life. This is what the committee is interested in getting to know, okay? And the second thing I'll say specifically to the India pool is, I think there's often the concern that because we have so many talented candidates from large countries such as India, that we only care about the specific data points in the applications. And that is absolutely not true either. You're not a score. So, sometimes people think that, if it comes down to the score, the committee will always take the higher score. Absolutely not true. And I'm sure everyone has heard the word here, holistic evaluation, right? We look at everything. It's important to look at everything. And this is why we have actual human beings reviewing applications and not AI, or we don't have some kind of algorithm making up the class, right? Because we try to understand who you are and what you bring to the community, okay? So we'd rather take a 710 GMAT than a 760 if there's something else in the application that we find outstanding and remarkable and truly enriching the SOM community. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't aim for the highest score you can achieve and put together the best application. Of course, that goes without saying, but I just don't want you to think that, oh, if I have this score, I have no chance, because in a competitive pool, coming from a country where the admissions committee will see so many applications from, the score is the only thing that matters. Absolutely not true.
Amazing. So the two big words that I've heard from you are authenticity and holistic application. So you really do look at these two factors very closely. And we also have a question in the chat box from one of our students. Hi, Ifi. She's asking, can you also refer to applicants from Africa if you have any tips for them?
Mm-hmm. Specifically from Africa, no, not anything different from what I already said. And perhaps the only other thing I should add, and it might apply to Africa or specifically for India, I wanted to point out the transcripts, right? We are very familiar with all the different institutions across India. We for years now, review applications from different colleges, universities in India. We know no two transcripts look the same. Some of them have the percentages, some of them have a GPA on different scale. Sometimes they have class rank, right? First class honors, second class, etc. So there's so many different variations. So what's really important for you when you submit your transcript is to make sure to submit that part of the transcript where the legend or the guide that sort of offers information on that, on the grading scale of the institution is included, right? Otherwise, it just requires additional work on part of the committee to research it if it's not right there. So it really helps the committee. If there's anything that you feel you need to explain about your department, about your major, about your college, about your institution, do so in the optional essay. People sometimes think that the optional essay is just about pointing out why I got that D on my transcript in the second semester. No, it can be for anything. And so if you feel that you can offer additional context, additional information to help the admissions committee to better contextualize your academic record in your overall candidacy, please do so. That is really helpful and we always appreciate it. So yeah, I really cannot think of anything in Africa. Obviously, Africa is a huge continent. We see applications from many different countries with different transcripts. So I suppose that applies there as well. But I think that with Africa, we more often than not, we see a GPA on a 4.0 or 5.0 scale, as opposed to all the different variations that we see from Indian institutions.
Amazing. So you're saying that in addition to showcasing your authentic self and focusing on building a holistic profile, it just always helps to provide more context to the evaluation system used by the transcript system or the grading system at your university, and especially if that system, especially if the committee might not be very familiar with that system. And optional essay can be one way to sort of provide more information to the committee about that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great, amazing. And a lot of our students who are also online right now, joining us now, would be interested in knowing how can they enhance their profile for the next admission cycle, or if there are any things that they should definitely avoid, if there are any red flags, really. So it would be great to hear from you. If there are any do's and don'ts for those thinking of applying to Yale soon?
Yeah, sure. I can think of a few things. So a big don't is when the admissions committee is reading an application, as I mentioned, they really want to get a good sense of who you are, what you've done, what you aim to accomplish, et cetera, right? We really try to understand kind of your story in a clear, comprehensive way. So the onus in that sense is on you to put together a strong, clear, comprehensive application. And so if there's anything in your application that you believe might raise questions with the admissions committee, and I truly mean any part of your application, whether you transferred from one undergraduate institution to another, nothing wrong with that, absolutely nothing wrong. Many people do it. We accept those people all the time. But again, if you can help the committee understand why that took that step, what was the reason behind it, to kind of better understand your story, do so in the optional essay. If there's fluctuation in your academic performance, if you had to withdraw from school one semester, if there was a gap in employment, if you decided to leave your job and travel around the world, these are all perfectly fine things, but the committee wants to understand how, again, that fits into your overall narrative and your story, right? And so provide as much information as you can, as you're comfortable with. We're not asking for an entirely new essay on that topic, but again, the optional essay comes in handy to just write a few sentences, shed some light, provide additional context, and just really help us understand your journey. And especially if there's something that sometimes candidates divide that additional information into positive and negative, right? Oh, I got the highest honors in my class. That's obviously a very positive thing to point out, but I had a terrible semester. They see it as a negative. So especially with something negative, if you don't take the time to address it, I can assure you that the committee will probably hold it against you. We have a very understanding committee and will consider anything and everything. I mean, people go through incredibly difficult circumstances in life, and especially in the past 2 years, people have gone through really, really difficult things. And we understand that, and we will never hold it against anyone. But if there's something and you simply decide not to say anything about it, then the committee just decides that there's no good reason for it. So what I'm saying is, do yourself a favor, own up to it. Anything is a good explanation. I will never say that there's a good reason and a bad reason. No such thing. Again, everybody goes through different things in life. Maybe you started college and you didn't quite know how to manage your time. And you had a steep learning curve and you didn't do well your first semester, your first year. Yeah, that happens actually often to students. It's perfectly fine. But again, own up to it, explain it, let us know about it. On the other side, sort of the do's, I'm sure you probably have many conversations with many candidates about kind of how to put together a strong application, how to create a strong narrative, right? And I think a lot of it comes with, yes, conversations with a professional such as yourself. But I think also a lot of it is a result of self-reflection and thoughtfulness and soul searching, right? I mean, truly thinking about what is important to you, what do you find meaningful, why you want to accomplish something, what exactly you want to accomplish, and how you hope to get there, what path you want to take to get there, because inevitably there's always more than one path, right? We're kind of privileged in that sense that we have choices. And so I would encourage you to take the time to do that self-reflection, right? Don't discount it as, don't be kind of in an automatic mode of putting together the application. Okay, I contacted my recommenders, I wrote my essay, I took my GMAT, right? Sure, those are kind of, steps that you have to take that feel more automated. But I think behind the process, there's a human being that is taking part in those actions. So as a human being, you should stop and reflect. And the reason why I'm going on this long discourse to say this is because it really comes through in the applications. I have read thousands of applications, and it really shows who has taken the time to think, reflect, to thoughtfully lay it out for the admissions committee, and really put together in a way that is clear and concise and comprehensive, and has done so with confidence and conviction. I really want to assure you it comes through, and the committee really appreciates it.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is that one thing that everyone must do is to spend some time on just reflecting what do they want to do in life, why and how, and then contextualize the MBA education in sort of that larger journey. What I'm also hearing from you is that the committee is very open and very accommodating to any red flags and negatives on the application, but it really does help if the applicant provides more context to why certain things or certain negative things happened in the application, to help the committee take it in a more, look at it more positively rather than, it will just help them know the reasons for why, if there's a gap or if there is a negative grade, then it just helps the committee understand that a bit better. We have a question in the chat box, which is related to this, and you have answered, touched upon it broadly, but I'm just going to read that question aloud. How does a female engineer with a manufacturing profile fare in comparison to the plethora of applications received? And this, this goes back to your point of building a holistic profile, but it will be great if you can address this question maybe through some examples on what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic to see a female engineer in general. Sadly, if you kind of look at the gender parity in an MBA class, not just with us, at any MBA program, you see that there are fewer women, right? And that's a reflection of the pool. Fewer women apply to business school, which is why we're currently at 43% of our MBA class of 2023. Within that pool of women applicants, students, certain professions, careers, experiences are underrepresented, specifically the engineering, tech fields, manufacturing. So it's always wonderful to see a candidate like that. But exactly what you said, Garima, it kind of goes into the bigger picture of what we have been talking about. But if the candidate, this specific candidate, is just asking, about how the committee views that particular profile, that particular aspect of a candidacy, is obviously very favorably. Yeah.
Great, awesome. So you're saying that while the applicant thinks that there's a lot of competition, perhaps they're a great fit for the MBA school because there perhaps not as many female engineers applying for the MBA, but also what you're saying is that that's just one aspect of how you evaluate profiles. There's so many other aspects which decide whether you get accepted or not. So they should really focus on, again, all the bigger points that you mentioned about self-reflection and building a holistic profile and telling your authentic story in a more clear, obvious sort of a way.
Exactly right.
Great. We have another question. which is related to something that you've already spoken about. This is about how integrated is Yale School of Management with the rest of Yale University and other schools. Can candidates cross-register?
Yeah, so you're right. I touched on that a little bit. I'm happy to expand on it. So what I mentioned is that we're very proud to be the business school perhaps most integrated with its home institution, meaning that any MBA program, perhaps any graduate program will tell you, of course, you're part of the home university. Of course, you have access to it. Of course, you can take courses. But it always comes with some kind of caveat or restriction or limitation. And we have none, zero boundaries. You're a Yale student. You can take as many courses from anywhere on campus. The second year of the MBA program is all electives. If you choose, you can take all of your courses outside of the Yale School of Management. No one will stop you. It's your campus. And I truly mean as many classes as you wish, meaning the tuition stays the same. The full load is 4 courses a semester. If you decide to sign up for 12, not that I recommend it, but I'm just saying if you want to take more than the full load of courses, you can. You can take some of them for credit, some of them for audit. It doesn't have to be 12 courses for a letter grade where you're responsible for doing all the work and taking all the exams and doing all the assignments, etc. But again, and one thing I'll say is, we spoke earlier about, you're interested in healthcare, you can go to the Yale School of Public Health and School of Medicine and Yale School of the Environment and Jackson Institute for Global Affairs, etc., etc. What I want to say is to also keep in mind, you're a graduate student, you're at an amazing institution such as Yale University, you're allowed to be intellectually curious. Take a photography course, take a philosophy course, take an astronomy course, anything that you feel that, well, when else will I have the chance to do that? Now is my time. Go for it. Absolutely. This is an amazing institution with world-renowned faculty. So maybe you have that one passion for interest in a subject that you never got a chance to explore as an undergraduate, and you feel you may not have another chance soon as a busy professional right after you finish your MBA. So take full advantage. You're absolutely encouraged at Yale to do that. And again, that means connecting with a greater Yale community. And I don't mean just with courses and professors, but any student clubs, organizations, centers, institutes. Really, it's your campus, it's your Yale, it's your institution, and you can freely move and take advantage of anything available to you. You can even TA or do research for a faculty member across the campus. Again, if it's related to something that you're interested in, you can apply for fellowships and grants outside of the Yale School of Management. You're not on an island at the Yale School of Management. You're really, truly part of an institution that I advise you to take full advantage of for the 2 years that you're there.
Amazing. So you're not only allowed to cross-register and benefit from all the Yale resources, but you are in fact highly encouraged to do so. So that's Absolutely amazing. We also have another profile building question that I'll quickly take up before we move to other aspects about the school. So this question is asking, how does the panel manage the selection process where a candidate has a convincing profile and application, but a GRE that is short of the minimum requirements? And again, you've touched upon this, by saying that you actually really look at the holistic profile, but it'd be nice to address this question specifically.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to say that we don't have a minimum requirement for the GMAT, for the GRE, for the GPA. If you go to our website and look at the stats, again, the class of 2023, you'll see the median GPA is 3.69. But that probably doesn't apply to any of the Indian students, because I think very few institutions in India have a 4.0, right? So the stats that you see online in terms of median GPA are only taken from institutions that report on a 4.0 scale, which I'm sure you know that many US institutions don't even do that, right? MIT is on a 5.0 scale, Cornell is on a 4.3. These are just a few quick examples that come to mind, right? And so there is no minimum requirement where, oh, if you're below that threshold, we don't read your application, we don't review it, we don't even bother with it. There's no such thing. We very carefully look at every application, and you've taken the time to put together an application. I want to assure you that the admissions committee takes the time to review it and consider it in all the different aspects that you've presented to us. Now, if your question is more about, you know, I'm not happy with my score, or I didn't do as well as I could have, or I'm not as I'm below the average for the class. Great, then that's worth a conversation, right? And what steps you could potentially make? Can you retake the test? Can you switch to the GRE if that works better for you? You know, you can apply and with a score, and a few weeks into the application round, you can submit a new score. We're absolutely fine with that. And I know that some schools say once you've applied, let the admissions committee do their job. We're not that kind of school. We are always happy to get an update from a candidate. If you have something to tell us, we're happy to hear it. Whether you want to submit a new resume, or you want to update us on a promotion or a new project, or switching jobs, or a new test score, or you completed a course online, great, tell us about it. That only kind of enhances your application. We have a special section actually in our database for application update. We will absolutely look at it and take it into consideration. So, you know, again, I want to emphasize you're not a score to us. And you certainly have steps you can take, you know, in regards to the test, if you feel that you're not happy, or you haven't done your best, or, you know, this is not putting your best foot forward. But most importantly, you know, you can apply with a score and submit a new one after you have applied.
Great, awesome. So that's very informative. Also, I remember at the very beginning of the conversation, you were telling us about how there are these student ambassadors that anyone who wants like more details around profile building aspects can reach out to. So maybe it will be, yeah, at the end of this conversation, or, you know, great, you already shared that link. So I would encourage everyone who's with us on this panel to feel free to reach out to the ambassadors, and also to Maria. I mean, she's been very gracious in sharing her own personal ID. So please feel free to reach out if you have any specific questions around these. Okay, so great. So moving on, I think we've spoken a lot about the class, about the profile, how can students build a good profile, what will be a good fit. I think I would be interested in knowing more also about if there is any typical day at the MBA school, and if there are any facilities that you've provided for the students at the school.
Typical day. So the first year is very different from the second year. And the reason is that the first year is more structured. As you start the MBA program, the first year of your education is essentially going through what we call the integrated core curriculum. The class of about, as I said, 345 to 350 students is divided into 5 cohorts, and you go through the integrated curriculum with your cohort. Additionally, each cohort is divided into large learning teams of 7 to 8 people and small learning teams of 3 to 4 people. And the reason is that there's a lot of emphasis on group work and collaboration at Yale SOM. And so these groups and teams are very strategically formed so that when a class assignment requires it, the teams are ready made. So they're made during orientation in August. They're not done by us in admissions. They're done by our colleagues in academic affairs and student life. And they have a special algorithm to make sure that there's absolute diversity on each team and each cohort, right? The Silva scholars are equally distributed, the joint degree students, the accountants, the art historians. You can't have 4 accountants on a team. That's just a no-no. So, and the other thing is actually good for the students, right? Because oftentimes as human beings, we tend to be drawn to people that are like us, that we have shared experiences with, right? But in life and in your career, you have to work with a lot of different people that have experienced life differently, that have a different perspective on things. And so really the idea is to create a very diverse team of students that you can work with through the semester or through the year if it requires it. Classes are Monday through Thursday. Friday is kind of dedicated for professional development, career day. Employers used to come to campus, now do events virtually, right? And weekends, oftentimes people think that, they'll escape to the big city on weekends, but that doesn't happen because there is just so much to do at Yale that, they stay and, as I said, take full advantage of everything the university has to offer. And then the second year is very different because as you're taking your electives at SOM or across the campus, some classes will be Tuesday and Thursday, some Monday and Wednesday. If you decide to take a language class, Yale offers more than 50 languages. That's usually a daily class. So pretty heavy duty, right? And so again, the second year is very different based on how you kind of design your schedule and what you decide to get involved in. It's a completely different experience from the first year.
Amazing. So I'm hearing that there is almost everything, everything and anything available for the applicants and students at Yale SOM for them to really like expand their personality and their career opportunities. So that's great. Moving to the applications, I also noticed there is a question in the chat box on the applications. But before I take that question, I would like to hear from you. How have the applications been this year? Has COVID sort of changed the trends in any way? And how does the school review applications?
So again, sorry, specifically for India or just general trends?
Yeah, I think we have with us students from India and Africa for sure. Like, so we would definitely love to talk about, hear from you about those 2 geographies. Yeah.
Sure, great. So from Africa, we never get enough applications. I mean, it's there are a few regions around the world, I'll be completely honest, where we are constantly trying to do more and more to attract more applications from and more candidates from. And one region is Africa, Europe as well, Latin America, the Middle East, right? Yeah, so, and with Africa also, again, huge continent, very diverse, right? We usually see applications from a handful of countries, which is really funny. I just remembered I read an application from Burkina Faso the other day, and I think it's the very first I've ever read from Burkina Faso. So it was completely fascinating for me. But more often than not, we get applications from Kenya, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, etc. Sort of the biggest economies, the biggest kind of countries in Africa. But regardless, as I said, we would just want to see more applications and more students coming into the class from Africa. For that specifically, we've dedicated special scholarships, half tuition and full tuition scholarships. So we understand the talent is there. We understand that it's oftentimes cost prohibitive. So, we've created additional funds to support those students. And specifically for India, so I don't quite know if I have a specific trend to point out to. Last year was incredibly difficult for India, last spring in particular. So we think that this is when a lot of candidates kind of stopped in hesitation. They decided to push things off to the next application cycle. So in round one, we saw an increase of applications from India. Round two, we saw a decrease. So again, we still have round three to come. So again, I don't know what that means for the entire application cycle of 21, 22. Again, this is an incredibly talented pool. The number of students in the class is a reflection of the pool. So we do take more students from India because we simply receive more applications from there, and they're really, really strong applications, and we want to have those students in the class, right? And yeah, so again, I don't know what to accept from round three. We're still in the middle of round two. And don't quite know what to anticipate for next year. But as we were chatting right before the event, we're very hopeful that things will open up again soon and we'll start coming to India as we used to, at least 3, 4, 5 times a year to connect with Indian candidates in person in the big cities. We're very much hoping that that will happen again soon.
Yeah, we all have our fingers crossed for that, and we are really excited to, start traveling again and start meeting you in person again. So really looking forward to that. So there is a question in the chat box which is related to applications. This is asking, does the admission committee review applications on a first come basis, or are our applications reviewed at the end of the deadline?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I'm very happy to talk about that. We're very actually transparent about our process. So we don't review applications early. If you submit before the deadline, nobody will look at the application. We not only wait until the application deadline, but there's a second deadline, and that's the deadline to submit your video questions. And it's usually 5 to 7 days after the application deadline, depending on the round. So we don't actually start reviewing the applications until the video questions are also submitted. So basically, when the applications are complete is when we can begin reviewing applications. Because if anything is missing from the application, and I know that to someone it may sound like a small deal, like somebody went on a study abroad in London and is missing that transcript. For us, that's an incomplete application. So if anything is missing, big or small, we cannot touch an application because we feel that we don't have the full picture and it's unfair to the candidate. So after the video questions deadline, all the applications are entered into a database. And the admissions committee of about 15 people has access to the database, and all the admissions officers randomly pull applications from, they're not separated by country or gender or industry or major academic background. They all go into the database. And all of us kind of randomly pull applications into our queue, let's say 5 at a time, 10 at a time, something manageable, right? You don't want to pull 50 applications into your queue, and that's just crazy. And then you start reading applications. It's not like applications from a certain country are read before another country, or domestic versus international. We just read all the applications throughout the round. And each application is read completely and evaluated by at least 2 admissions officers. After that, there's an interview committee. The committee meets in order to make a decision on whether to invite the candidate to interview. Everybody that's considered for admission will be interviewed. No candidate will be admitted into the program without an interview. So interview invitations start going out in waves. It's very likely that, if you know a friend that's applying from your same country, from your same company, you've received an invitation, they haven't, doesn't mean anything. We reviewed your application, we invited you, we may not have even looked at their application, right? So I know that candidates, and I'm sure there are things written on forums online, I don't even know what things, but I'm sure that they kind of try to make sense of the process. And sometimes the process even that isn't that structured, right? In the sense that we read applications, we extend interview invitations. We read more applications, we extend more interview invitations, and that goes throughout the round. And then right before the end of the round, the committee is literally meeting every day, all day, to make admissions decisions. So we discuss everyone, and we make admissions decisions. So that's essentially the process. A candidate can be waitlisted at any time. They may have been read and not invited to interview, but be waitlisted. They may have been invited for an interview, but be waitlisted. So yeah, pretty much anything can happen. Yeah.
Great, amazing. So really helps calm my nerves and the nerves of my students to know that they should not overthink about the timing of the interview call. And also
that's the word for it, not to overthink it. Yes.
Yeah, and also to know that you have a fairly transparent process, that you are fairly open about, and then you start reviewing applications after the deadline. So people should make sure that they're taking their time to really build that application and submit it anytime before the deadline. Great, so that's great to know. I know we have only a few minutes left. So I would really like you to talk about the financial aid. I'd like to talk about, there is also a question in the chat box about what kind of opportunities are available for international students, specifically Indian students. And in general, I would like you to talk about how can a student build on a profile to get funding, international funding.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So process-wise, we make it very, very easy for everyone. And what that means is that you don't have to do anything to apply for a scholarship. The moment you submit your application, you're automatically considered for all the scholarship funds that we have available. You don't have to check a box, you don't have to write an essay, you don't have to say, please consider me for scholarships. We just do that automatically. And the reason is that all of our scholarship money is merit-based, not need-based. We don't ask any questions in the application about how much do you have in savings, in assets, how much can parents and partners contribute to your education. We just don't ask any of those questions. Yes, we ask the question of your income, but I hope everyone here knows that that's only to calculate the application fee, because we have a 3-tier application fee. And so we understand that incomes vary across regions and geographies. We don't want to disadvantage anyone. And so that's why we ask you to enter your income. We take it at face value. You don't have to submit any documentation. It's just there to calculate your application fee. Okay. So yes, all of our scholarship money is merit-based. And here I should probably also open a kind of a parenthesis and say that that's not the case with the other professional schools at Yale University. Every other professional school considers needs. Okay, so it's a very different process. And I just wanted to mention that in case somebody's applying for a joint degree program, it will be a very different process at the other school. So at SOM merit-based, what that means is that it's based on your application, right? Everything that you submit to us, your academic record and test scores, what your recommenders have to say about you, your resume, career progression, potential achievements, impact, etc. All of that is taken into consideration when the Office of Financial Aid makes decisions about awarding merit-based scholarships. More than a third of our students are awarded some kind of a scholarship. If you're awarded a scholarship, the smallest amount is $20,000 towards your MBA, so $10,000 a year, and the maximum is full tuition. Specifically for India, just like what I said pertaining to Africa, a lot of talent in India. oftentimes, sometimes, I mean, especially people working in the nonprofit sector, the degree could be cost prohibitive. So we have, again, over the past few years, added additional scholarship funds for half tuition and full tuition scholarships just for students from India. Because we admit them great, but we also want them to come. So we want to make it easier for them to accept the offer of admission and join the SOM community. Besides that, we have loans, we have professionals in the financial aid office that work with you and helping you figure out how to finance your MBA once admitted into the program through all different kinds of funding. They talk you through different options, as I said, including loans, and they work with you to, hopefully make it possible to join us.
Great. Yeah, that was super informative. So not only do you adjust the fees, but more than a third of your class is on some sort of a scholarship. So that's great to hear. And like I already mentioned, we have your email ID and also the link where anybody, students can connect with the student ambassadors. So I am sure that everybody who's on the call right now will reach out to you and will reach out to student ambassadors for any further questions. But thank you so much, Maria, for joining us today and answering all these brilliant questions that people had in the chat box and telling us more about the School of Management at Yale University.
Thank you as well, Garima, and thank you, Reach IV. You know, I love your team and always very, very happy to be in touch with you and work with you. I really encourage candidates to reach out to me as an admissions officer, as someone who sits on the admissions committee and is happy to provide advice and guidance. We are very busy, but it's never a bother. I'm always happy to hear from a prospective candidate. If you have a question, you're not able to find an answer on a website, and all different kinds of things are written in online forms, just reach out to me and ask me. I would be happy to get back to you and provide all the help I can.
Okay, thank you, Maria, for that generous offer. I'm sure an email will be flooded after this, but yeah, it's great to know that it's no bother to you. So on that note, thank you again, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, just feel free to drop us an email and reach out if you have any further questions.
Right. Thank you, everyone. I wish everyone all the best.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.